So I went to go see the car after the crash, and you could see a perfect impression of my face in the windshield. You could see my eye sockets, my nose, my mouth. There were clumps of my hair still in the glass, clumps of my skin still in the glass. I wished nothing but misery and suffering and pain for him, because that's what I went through, and it's only fair. My name is Tammy Hahn. I am 44 years old. I am the mother of 4 boys, happily married. My divine detour happened April 21st, 1991. I was the passenger in a vehicle. A friend of mine was driving. We were coming back from a company picnic. We were on a road that we were traveling about 60 miles an hour, and there was another vehicle coming in the opposite direction. In that vehicle, there was an adult male driver, an adult male passenger. The driver's 13-year-old daughter and her friend were in the back seat. These 2 adults in that vehicle had been drinking all day. They attempted to make a left-hand turn in front of our vehicle and hit us head on. The next little bit of my story is not from what I remember, but from what other people at the scene told me what happened. The driver of that other vehicle, that intoxicated driver, he got out and walked home. And he left his own child in the car hurt. His friend that was in the passenger seat, he got out of his car and came over to our vehicle. But you see, I was unconscious and covered in blood. He proceeded to pick me up and remove me from the car and carry me off into the woods. You see, I think he thought I was dead, and he was going to try to hide me. Lucky for me, some people who were driving by happened to see what was going on. And they stopped and they got me away from him, brought me back to the scene, and they called the police. First thing I remember was waking up in the emergency room with a doctor leaning over my face and my mom and her friend at the foot of my bed. And I just remember screaming. I was screaming at the top of my lungs. I was in so much pain. And then I don't really remember anything for about a day and a half after that. I was very heavily medicated due to the intense pain. When I woke up and realized I was laying in a hospital bed, it was pretty hard to understand because, you see, I know that everyone's face is important to them, but I was a 21-year-old girl. And for a 21-year-old girl, your face is really, really important. And half of my face was bandaged, and no one would tell me how bad it was or what was underneath that bandage. I would ask. When the doctor came in my room that day, he said, "Tammy, tomorrow I'm going to remove the bandages, and tomorrow I'm going to let you see your face." You see, that was the longest 24 hours of my life. Because when you leave something like that to your imagination, you don't sit there and imagine the best. You sit there and you imagine the worst. And that's exactly what I did. The next day, when the doctor came in my room, I remember him walking through the door and he was holding one of those big square mirrors with the handle on it. I'll never forget it. And he looked at all my friends and family in my room, and he said, "I need you guys to be really strong for Tammy right now, and if you can't do that, I need you to leave the room." Well, they all stayed. You see, it's my friends and my family. And they knew that I needed them right then, and they wanted to be there for me. So as he came over to my bed, and he proceeded to start taking the bandages off of my face, the more of the bandages that he removed, the more of my friends and family that had to leave the room. You see, they knew that I needed them right then, and they wanted to be there for me, but they didn't want me to see them cry. And it was too much. It was too much for them to have to deal with, too. So when all of the bandages were off, and he handed me that mirror, and I picked it up and I looked into it, everything I had imagined over that last 24 hours was true. When you see that, You think there's no way they can fix it. It's just too much. They rebuilt my eyelid from skin down here. They took eyelashes from the bottom and implanted on the top. When you lose an eyelash, it grows back. When I lose one, it doesn't. Lacerations on my face, I had to have what's called dermabrasion. That's where they sand your skin down layer after layer after layer at a time. It is extremely painful, not just for a couple days or a couple weeks. It is extremely painful for a couple months. It just burns all the time. And then once I had that done, I had to wait 6 months before I went back in to see the doctor again. Only for him to tell me that I had to have it done again. The driver of that vehicle, the intoxicated driver, when the police went to go arrest him that night, he tried to tell him that his 13-year-old daughter was driving. You know, drinking and driving wasn't the only bad choice that they made that night. And you know, I have to say, for a really long time, I wished nothing but misery and suffering and pain for him. Because that's what I went through, and it's only fair. But then it hit me one day. He didn't wake up that morning and say, you know what, I'm going to go get drunk and I'm going to mess up Tammy Hahn's life. That's what I'm going to do today. He didn't do that. Him and his buddy were out having a good old time. They made some bad choices. But the thing is, they didn't get to pick the consequences. You see, my sister kept telling me, oh, Tammy, you've got to pray for him. Well, how do you pray for someone that you have so much anger towards? It was really hard for me. And first I said, oh, I've been praying. I prayed he got hit by a train. I prayed a brick fell on his head. And she said, no, you have to pray good things. So I started little. And with every little prayer that I said, I was able to grow with that. And it helped me realize that this particular gentleman, he had a disease. It was called alcoholism, and it was untreated. He needed help. That's what he needed. People ask me all the time if I've forgiven him. And I can honestly say I have 100% forgiven him. And I hope that he got the help he needed. But I'm totally okay in my heart with knowing that he didn't mean to hurt me. He was sick and he needed help. So since the crash, note, I did not say accident. Accidents are something that you cannot prevent. An alcohol-related crash is 100% preventable. It's a matter of choice. It's your choice. But just remember, you don't get to pick the consequences. You see, it took me a long time to be where I wasn't afraid to be in front of people. I wasn't afraid of people staring at me. Even to this day, I don't go anywhere without makeup. I have to have at least eyeliner and mascara on, because I feel that if I have eyeliner and mascara on, it hides a little bit of the scarring around my eyes. It was about 11 years ago when my husband decided that he wanted to be a volunteer deputy sheriff for our county. And his primary goal that he wanted to do was he wanted to be a DWI officer. And he wanted to prevent other people from having to go through the same pain that I went through when I was hit by the drunk driver. He's my hero. And I think that's where it first started, because I felt that if I could just tell someone what I went through, then they would see the danger in their choice, and maybe they would make a different choice. And maybe I would save that person's life. Maybe I couldn't save everyone's life, but maybe I could just save one life by them hearing what happened to me. And from that it grew. I got involved with Mothers Against Drunk Driving. I started a local chapter in our area. And every single time I tell someone my story, it helps me heal a little bit too. About a year ago, my mother-in-law heard my story for the very first time. And when I went home that night, she came up to me and she said, "Tammy, do you think that things happen for a reason? Like everything in the universe happens for a reason?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And she looked at me and she said, "I really believe that this crash happened for a reason." She said, "I think you were meant to do this. I think you were meant to share your story and hopefully have a chance of saving someone's life." And that was the moment, I think. That was the moment that I went, it makes sense. Maybe it did happen for a reason. Maybe this is what I'm meant to do. Maybe through a little bit of pain that I had to go through, it could save other people's lives. But through everything I've been through, the one thing I could always count on is God was always there for me. He was always there with a plan. I may not have been able to see the plan at the time, or maybe even agree with it, or understand it. But I knew in my heart that I just had to go along because ultimately there was a much bigger plan. And I was able to accept everything that had happened to me. And after a while, I think it wasn't even that big of a deal. I think I was able to just let go of that anger and that pain, and I just let God have it. And it made my life a whole lot easier.